Rupam Sangrajatam Sanganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shirana Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivishakam Vitam Scha Om Gyana Timaranda Shagana Jana Shilakya Chakshurna Militam Yena Tasma Shigurabhenama Gurva Bistam Saputarkam Gurganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipunam Shirupa Patanagam Govinda Abhidamujwalam Varatanam Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Vande Vishwagurun Shahat Divyat Bhagavat Premna Vibijapranam Devam Divyatanam Suchandabaranam Bolarka Shilanshitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Varam Vande Tam Shubharam Mareka Sharanam Yashishvara Shridaram Vanshakopatarubyas Chakripa Sindhu Bhyavata Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahamananyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratabhishe Namah. So we're hearing from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is Adi-lila chapter 16, the pastimes of the Lord in his childhood and youth. Verse number 1. Kripa Shuddha Saridyasya Vishvam Aplavayanti Api Nichagaiva Sada Bhakti Tam Chaitanya Prabhum Bhaje Kripash Sudha Saridyasya Vishwam Aplavayantyapi Nichagaiva Sada Bhakti Tam Chaitanya Prabhum Bhaje. I worship Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose nectarian mercy flows like a great river, inundating the entire universe. Just as a river flows downstream, Lord Chaitanya especially extends himself to the fallen. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of the Lord. Jiyat Kaishora-Chaitanya Murti Madhya Grihashramat Lakshmyar Chitota Vagdevya Disham Jayi Jaya Chalat. Long live Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Kaishora age. Both the goddess of fortune and the goddess of learning worshipped him. The goddess of learning, Saraswati, worshipped him in his victory over the scholar who had conquered all the world. And the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi, worshipped him at home. Since he is therefore the husband or lord of both goddesses, I offer my obeisances unto him. Eta Kaishora-lila Sutranubandha Sishyagan Paraite Korila Aramba. At the age of 11, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to teach students. This marks the beginning of his Kaishora age. Shata Shata Shishya Sange Sara Adyapana Vyakya Shuni Sarva Loker Chamat Kitaman. As soon as the Lord became a teacher, many students came to him, every one of them astonished to hear his mode of explanation. Sarva Shastre Sarva Pandita Paya Parajai Vinoe Bangite Karo Dukan Nahik Hoy. The Lord defeated all kinds of scholars in discourses about all the scriptures, yet because of his gentle behavior, none of them were unhappy. Bibida Odatya Kore Sishyagan Sange Jana Bite Jalakeli Kore Nanarange. The Lord, as a teacher, performed various kinds of pranks in his sporting pastimes in the water of the Ganges. Gata Dine Koila Prabhu Bangeti Gaman Jahan Jai, Tahan, Lao Jai, Nama Sankirtan. After some days, the Lord went to East Bengal, and wherever he went, he introduced the Sankirtan movement. Vidyara Prabhava Deki Chamatkara Chite Shata Shata Paduyashi Lagila Padite. Struck with wonder by the influence of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu's intellectual prowess, many hundreds of students came to the Lord and began studying under his direction. Sedeshe Bipranam Mishra Tapan Nischai Korite Nare Sadhya Sadan. In East Bengal, there was a Brahmin named Tapan Mishra who could not ascertain the objective of life or how to attain it. Bahu Shastre Bahu Bhakye Chite Brahmahoy Sadhya Sadhana Shrestha Nahoy Nischoy. If one becomes a bookworm, reading many books and scriptures and hearing many commentaries and the instructions of many men, this will produce doubt within one's heart. One cannot in this way ascertain the real goal of life. Swapne ek viprakohe shunahataban nimai pandit pashe korahagaman. Tapan Mishra, being thus bewildered, was directed by a Brahmin in a dream to go to Nimai Pandit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if one goes to a pharmacy, there may be so many different medicines, but one needs a doctor to be able to prescribe something to him. Otherwise, one will be bewildered just looking at the whole walls and walls of medicine. So, Tapan Swapne Viprakohe Shunaha Tapan Nimai Pandit Pashe Koraha Gaman. Tapan Mishra, being thus bewildered, was directed by a Brahmin in a dream to go to Nimai Pandit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Teho tomara sadhya sarana koribe nisjoy, sakat Ishwara teho nahika samshay. Because he is the Lord, Ishwara, the Brahmin told him, undoubtedly he can give you proper direction. Swapna deki Mishra ashi prabhuracharane, swapnera britanta sab koila nivedane. After seeing the dream, Tapan Mishra came to the shelter of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, and he described all the details of the dream to the Lord. Prabhu tushtohaya sadhya sarana kohila namasankirtan kora upadesha koila. The Lord, being satisfied, instructed him about the object of life and the process for attaining it. He instructed him that the basic principle of success is to chant the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Tara Icha Prabhu Sange Navadipe Bashi Prabhu Adi-lila Tumi Jao Varanashi. Tapan Mishra desired to live with the Lord in Navadip, but the Lord asked him to go to Varanashi, Benares. The Lord's staying in Navadip, but he still told him, go to Benares. Tahanama Sange Tomar Habe Darshan Agyapaya Mishra Koila Kashite Gaman. The Lord assured Tapan Mishra that they would meet again in Varanashi. Receiving this order, Tapan Mishra went there. Prabhura Antarkya Lila Bhujite Napari Swasanga Chanaya Kene Pataya Kashipuri. I cannot understand the inconceivable pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For although Tapan Mishra wanted to live with him in Navadip, the Lord advised him to go to Varanashi. When Tapan Mishra met him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was living in household life, and there was no indication that in the future he would accept the sannyas order. But by asking Tapan Mishra to go to Varanashi, he indicated that in the future he would accept sannyas, and that when he would teach Sanatana Goswami, Tapan Mishra would take advantage of the opportunity to learn the object of life and the real process for attaining it. Emata Bangera Logera Koila Mahahit Namadiya Bhakta Koila Panaya Pandita. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu contributed the greatest benefit to the people of East Bengal by initiating them into Harinam, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and making them learned scholars by educating them. Imata Bange Prabhu Kore Nana Lila Eta Nabadipe Lakshmi Virahe Duki Hoila. Because the Lord was engaged in various ways in preaching work in East Bengal, his wife, Lakshmi Devi, was very unhappy at home in separation from her husband. Prabhora Viraha Sarpa Lakmire Damshila Viraha Sarpa Vishetara Paraloka Hoila. The snake of separation bit Lakshmi Devi, and its poison caused her death. Thus she passed to the next world. She went back home, back to God. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yam Yam Vapi Smaram Bhavam Jajeti Antikalevaram. One's practice and thinking throughout his entire life determines the quality of his thoughts at death, and thus at death one obtains a suitable body. According to this principle, Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune from Vaikuntha, who was absorbed in thought of the Lord and separation from him, certainly went back to Vaikuntha Loka after death. Okay. Antare Janila Prabhu Jate Antarjami Deshare Aila Prabhu Sachiduka Jani. Lord Chaitanya knew about the disappearance of Lakshmi Devi because he is the super soul himself. Thus he returned home to solace his mother, Sachi Devi, who is greatly unhappy about the death of her daughter-in-law. Gare Aila Prabhu Bahu Loha Danajan. Gare Aila Prabhu Bahu Laha Danajan Tattvagyane Koila Sachir Dukkha Vimochan. When the Lord returned home, bringing with him great wealth and many followers, he spoke to Sachi Devi about transcendental knowledge to relieve her of the grief she was suffering. Sishyagan Laha Puna Vidyara Vilas Vidyabole Sabajini Odatya Prakash. After coming back from East Bengal, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again began educating others. By the strength of his education, he conquered everyone, and thus he was greatly proud. Tabe Vishnupriya Thakuranir Parinoi Tabe Thakurila Prabhu Digvijayi Jai. The Lord married Vishnupriya, the goddess of fortune, and thereafter he conquered a champion of learning named Keshav Kashmiri. Vrindavanadas Iha Kore Jachan Bishtar Futanahi Kore Dosha Gunara Vichar. Vrindavanadas Thakur has previously elaborately described this. That which is clear need not be scrutinized for good qualities and faults. Say Amshako Hitare Kore Namaskar Ja Shuni Digvijayi Koila Apana Dikar. Offering many obeisances to Srila Vrindavan Thakur, I shall try to describe that portion of the Lord's analysis which, when he heard it, made the Digvijayi feel himself condemned. Joshnavati Ratri Prabhu Shishyagan Sange Basi Jachin Gangatiri Vidyara Prasange. Once on a full moon night, the Lord was sitting on the bank of the Ganges with his many disciples and discussing literary topics. Hinakale Digvijayit Tahayala Gangare Bandanakore Prabhure Milila. Coincidentally, Keshav Kashmiri Pandit came there. While offering his prayers to Mother Ganges, he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vasailatare Prabhu Adana Korea Digvijay Kohemane Avagya Korea. The Lord received him with adoration. But because Keshav Kashmiri was very proud, he talked to the Lord very inconsiderately. Vyakaran Paraha Nimai Pandita Tomaranam Bhaya Shastre Loke Tomar Kohe Gunagram. I understand that you are a teacher of grammar, he said, and that your name is Nimai Pandit. People speak very highly of your teaching of beginner's grammar. Vyakaran Madhye Shani Paraha Kalapa Shunilun Pangite Tomar Sishyara Samlapa. I understand that you teach Kalapa Vyakaran. I have heard that your students are very expert in the word jugglery of this grammar. Prabhu Kohe Vyakaran Parain Abhiman Kori Sishyete na Bhujayami Bhujaite Nari. The Lord said, yes, I am known as a teacher of grammar, but factually I cannot impress my students with grammatical knowledge, nor can they understand me very well. Since Keshav Kashmiri was a little puffed up, the Lord increased his artificial pride by presenting himself as subordinate to him. Thus he flattered him as follows. Kahantumi Sarva Shastre Kavitve Praveen Kahan Ami Subsishu Paduyandabina. My dear sir, whereas you are a very learned scholar in all sorts of scriptures and are very much experienced in composing poetry, I am only a boy, a new student and nothing more. Tomara Kavitva Kichu Shunite Hoiman Kripa Kori Kora Jari Gangara Varnan. Therefore, I desire to hear your skill in composing poetry. We could hear this if you would mercifully describe the glory of Mother Ganges. Shunya Brahmana Garbe Varnite Lagila Gati Egg Shata Shloka Gangara Varnila. When the Brahman Keshav Kashmiri heard this, he became still more puffed up, and within 1 hour he composed 100 verses describing Mother's Ganges. So he's describing these verses in Sanskrit. He's very, very proud. Shunya Korila Prabhu Bahuta Satkar Tomasama Prativite Kavi Nahiar. The Lord praised him, saying, Sir, there is no greater poet than you in the entire world. Tomara Kavitva Shloka Bhujite Karashakti Tumi Balok Jana Arta Kimva Saraswati. Your poetry is so difficult that no one can understand it but you and Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Replying to Keshav Kashmiri sarcastically, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indirectly minimized the value of his poetry by saying, yes, your compositions are so nice that no one but you and your worshipable mother, the goddess of learning, can understand them. Keshav Kashmiri was a favorite devotee of Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as the master of the goddess of learning, has the right to speak sarcastically of her devotees. In other words, although Keshav Kashmiri was proud of being favored by the goddess of learning, he did not know that she is controlled by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ekshlokararta jari koranijamuke shuni sab loktabe paiba borasuke. But if you explain the meaning of one verse, we can all hear it from your own mouth and thus be very happy. Tabe digvijayi vyakara shloka puchila Shata Shlokara Ek Shloka Prabhu Tapan. The digvijayi, Keshav Kashmiri, inquired which verse he wanted explained. The Lord then recited one of the 100 verses Keshav Kashmiri had composed. Mahatvam Gangaya Satatam Idam Abhatinitaram Yad Esha Sri Vishnos Charana Kamalotpati Subhaga Dvitiya Sri Lakshmi Eva Suranarar Archa Charana Bhavani Bhartur Ya Shirasi Vibhavati Adbhuta Guna. The greatness of Mother Ganges is always brilliantly exists. She is the most fortunate because she emanated from the lotus feet of Sri Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. She is the second goddess of fortune, and therefore she is always worshipped both by demigods and by humanity. Endowed with all wonderful qualities, she flourishes on the head of Lord Shiva. Shlokararta Kora Prabhu Chari Balo Vishmita Hoya Digvijayi Prabhure Puchila. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him to explain the meaning of this verse, the champion, very much astonished, inquired from him as follows. Janjavata Praya Ami Shloka Parila Tara Madhye Shloka Tumi Kaiche Kante Koila. I recited all the verses like the blowing wind. How could you completely learn by heart even one among those verses? Prabhu ko he devara bare tumi kavivar aiche devara bare keho hoy shrutidar. The Lord replied, by the grace of the Lord, someone may become a great poet, and similarly, by his grace, someone else may become a great shrutidar, who can memorize anything immediately. In this connection, shrutidar is a very important word. Shruti means hearing, and dar means one who can capture. Formerly, before the beginning of Kali Yuga, almost everyone, especially the intelligent man, the Brahmins, was a shrutidar. As soon as a student heard any of the Vedic wisdom from his master, he would remember it forever. There was no need to refer to books, and therefore there were no written books in those days. The spiritual master delivered the Vedic hymns and their explanations to the student, who would then remember them forever without consulting books. To become a shrutidar, one who can remember simply by hearing, is a great achievement for a student. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Yad Yad Vibhutimat Sattvam Srimad Arjitam Evava Tad Tad Eva Vagachatvam Mama Tejomsha Sambhavam. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Shlokararta Koila Vipra Paya Santosh Prabhu Kohik Kaha Shlokarar Kiba Gunadosh. Satisfied by the statement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Brahman Keshav Kashmiri explained the quoted verse. Then the Lord said, now kindly explain the special qualities and faults in the verse. Not only did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pick out this one among the 100 verses and remember it, although the Brahman had recited them like the blowing wind, but he also analyzed its qualities and faults. Not only did he hear the verse, but he immediately made a critical study of it. Viprakohe shloke nahi doshara avas upamalankar guna kichu anuprash. The Brahman replied, there is not a tinge of fault in that verse. Rather, it has the good qualities of similes and alliteration. Prabhu Kohan Kahijarina Koraharosh Kahatomar E Shloke Kiba Achedosh. The Lord said, my dear sir, I may say something to you if you will not become angry. Can you explain the faults in this verse? Prabhara Kavya Tomar Devata Santoshe Balomate Vicharile Jani Guna Doshe. There's no doubt that your poetry is full of ingenuity, and certainly it has satisfied the Supreme Lord. Yet if we scrutinizingly consider it, we can find both good qualities and faults. Tate balo kore shloka koraha bichar kave kahe jay kohile say Vedasar. The Lord concluded, now therefore let us carefully scrutinize this verse. The poet replied, yes, the verse you have recited is perfectly correct. Vyakaran Vyakaraniya tumi nahi para alankar tumi ki janibe e kavit verashar. You are an ordinary student of grammar. What do you know about literary embellishments? You cannot review this poetry because you do not know anything about it. Prabhu kohanateva puchiye tomare vichariya gunadosh bujaha amare. He's saying, you're just a teacher of beginning grammar. You're not on the level of being able to comment on this verse. You're a young boy. Taking a humble position, Mahaprabhu said, because I'm not on your level, I have asked you to teach me by explaining the faults and good qualities in your poetry. Nahi pare alankara Korijachi Shravan Tatiye Shloke Deki Bahudosha Guna. Certainly, I have not studied the art of literary embellishments, but I have heard about it from higher circles, and thus I can review this verse and find in it many faults and many good qualities. Kavi kohe kahadeki kon gunadosh Prabhu kahen kaheshuna na koriyarosh. The poet said, all right, let me see what good qualities and faults you have found. The Lord replied, let me speak and please hear me without becoming angry. Pancha dosh e shloke, pancha alankar, kramayami kohe shuna korahavichar. My dear sir, in this verse there are 5 faults and 5 literary ornaments. I shall state them one after another. Kindly hear me and then give your judgment. Avimurishta videyamsha duetai china virudamate bhagna krama punarata doshatin. In this verse, the fault of avimurishta videyamsa occurs twice, and the faults of virudamati, bhagna krama, and punarata occur once each. So you can also see how gifted is Krishnadas Kaviraj, that he knows all about these subjects and he can present them very clearly. And he's also, Krishnadas Kaviraj had composed not just Chaitanya Charitamrita, but what is it about? Govinda Lilamrita. So Gangara Mahatva Shloke Mula Videya Idam Shabde Anuvad Pache Avideya. The glorification of the Ganges, Mahatvam, Gangaya, is the principal unknown subject matter in this verse. And the known subject matter is indicated by the word idam, which has been placed after the unknown. Videya age kohe pache kohile anuvad. Elage shlokararta korijache mara. Because you have placed the known subject at the end and that which is unknown at the beginning, the composition is faulty, and the meaning of the words has become doubtful. Anuvadam anukritvaiva, anuvadam anuktvaiva, na videyam udirayat, na I alabdas, param kinshit, kutrachit, pratishtati. Anuvadam anuvaiva na videyam udirayat na I alabdas param kinchit kutrachit pratitishtati. Without first mentioning what is known, one should not introduce the unknown, for that which has no solid basis can never be established anywhere. Dvitiya Sri Lakshmi Ihan Dvitiyatva Videya Samase Gona Hoila Shabdartha Gela Kawai. In the word Dvitiya Sri Lakshmi, a second opulent goddess of fortune, the quality of being a second Lakshmi is the unknown. In making this compound word, the meaning became secondary and the originally intended meaning was lost. Dvitiya Shabda Videya Taha Para Samase Lakmira Samata Arta Korila Vinashe. Because the word Dvitiya, second, is the unknown, in its combination in this compound word, the intended meaning of equality with Lakshmi is lost. Because the word Dvitiya, second, is the unknown, and its combination in this compound word, the intended meaning of equality with Lakshmi is lost. Oh. Because the word Dvitiya, second, is the unknown, in its combination in this compound word, the intended meaning of equality with Lakshmi is lost. Avimrishta videyamsa edo sharanam ara ek doshache shuna sabadan. Not only is there the fault of vimrishta videyamsa, but there is also another fault which I shall point out to you. Kindly hear me with great attention. Bhavani Bhartri Shabda Dile Payasantosh Virudamate Kritnama E Mahadosh. Here is another great fault. You have arranged the word Bhavani Bhartri to your great satisfaction, but this betrays the fault of contradiction. Bhavani Shabde Kohe Mahadevera Grihini Tarabarta Kohile Dvitiya Bhartajani. The word Bhavani means the wife of Lord Shiva, but when we mention her husband, one might conclude that she has another husband. So if you say Bhavani Bharti, if you say Bhavani, you know it's the wife of Lord Shiva, but if you say Bhavani's husband, then it makes it sound like she has another husband. Otherwise, just by the word Bhavani, you know she's the wife of Lord Shiva. Shiva Patnira Bharta Iha Shunite Viruda Mate Krit Shabda Shastrena Hishuda. It is contradictory to hear that Lord Shiva's wife has another husband. The use of such words in literature creates the fault called Viruda Mate Krit. The construction is bad. If you said give this book to the husband of the wife of John, it's like it's all tangled. It makes it sound like that she has another husband. Brahmana Patnira Bhartar haste dehodan shabda shunite hoy dvitiya bharta gyan. If someone says, place this charity in the hand of the husband of the wife of the Brahmin, when we hear these contradictory words, we immediately understand that the Brahmin's wife has another husband. Dibhavati kriyaya vakya sangapuna visheshana Adbhuta guna e punar atadushana. The statement by the word vibhavati, flourishes, is complete. Qualifying it with the adjective adbhuta guna, wonderful qualities, creates the fault of redundancy. The statement by the word vibhavati, flourishes, is complete. Qualifying it with the adjective, adbhuta guna, wonderful qualities, creates the faults of redundancy. Tina pade anuprasha deke anupam ekpade nahi e dosha bhagnakraman. There is extraordinary alliteration in 3 lines of the verse, but in 1 line there is no such alliteration. This is the fault of deviation. I remember when I was in college, what was one of the best things that happened to me, because I studied English literature and writing and composition. But in one course, I wrote an essay at the beginning of the course, and I got back a big red F on the when I got my paper back, and was written by the teacher. Your vocabulary and your writing and vocabulary is like a suit of clothes which is 3 sizes too big for a person. And that was the best thing that happened to me, because after that I thought about that and I began to understand, if you're going to write something, write it in such a way that it communicates. Don't try to use big vocabulary. Just write it and so that it's simple and understood. So after that I changed and did well in that course. But that was, for me, one of the greatest things that happened to me, because after that it changed how I wrote. It was Tin pade anuprashna deke anupam ek pade nahi dosha bhagnakram. There is extraordinary alliteration in 3 lines of the verse, but in 1 line there is no such alliteration. This is the fault of deviation. Chadjapiye shlokayache panchalankar e panchadoshe shloka koila charakar. Although there are 5 literary ornaments decorating this verse, the entire verse has been spoiled by these 5 most faulty presentations. Dashalankara jari ek shloka hoy, ek doshe sabha lankara hoy koi. If there are 10 literary ornaments in a verse, but even 1 faulty expression, the entire verse is nullified. Sundara jaras jaiche bhushane bhushita ek shveta kushte jaiche koraye bigita. One's beautiful body may be decorated with jewels, but 1 spot of white leprosy makes the entire body abominable. Now, I'm not exactly sure what white leprosy, white leprosy is, but we sometimes see people that their skin is all uniformly pigmented, but in one place or more places on their body, the pigmentation has left, and it leaves it looking like their body is normal, but there are places on their body where they look like albinos, I believe they call it, with these spot blotches, sometimes prominently on their face. And I believe this is what is meant here. One's beautiful body may be decorated with jewels, but 1 spot of white leprosy makes the entire body abominable. Or we can just say some leprosy will make the body abominable. Asalankaravat kavyam dosha juk Chid vibhushitam shadvapu sundaram api shrirenaikena durbagam. As one's body, although well decorated with ornaments, is made unfortunate by even 1 spot of white leprosy, so an entire poem is made useless by a fault despite alliteration, similes, and metaphors. Pancha alankar ebe shunaha bichar dui shabda lankartina arta alankar. Now hear the description of the 5 literary embellishments. There are 2 ornaments of sound and 3 ornaments of meaning. Shabda lankaratin pade ache anuprash Sri Lakshmi shabde punar Uktavadabash. There is a sound ornament of alliteration in 3 lines, and in the combination of the words Sri and Lakshmi, there is the ornament of a tinge of redundancy, because Sri and Lakshmi mean the same thing, but we always say Sri first, so in one sense it's redundancy, but Mahaprabhu says, but in another sense it's very beautiful. Pratama charane pancha tak Karera Panti Tritiya Charane Hoy Pancha Repasiti. In the arrangement of the first line, the letter Ta occurs 5 times, and in the arrangement of the 3rd line repeats the letter Ra 5 times. Chaturta Charane Chari Ba Kora Prakash Ateva Shabdalankar anuprash. In the fourth line, the letter ba occurs 4 times. This arrangement of alliteration is a pleasing ornamental use of sounds. Now, these repetition of this sound in different lines is nice, but Mahaprabhu pointed out earlier, but one of the lines there is no repetition, so this is the fault of deviation. Sri Shabde Lakshmi, but Mahaprabhu says in 3 lines you've done it nicely. 3 out of the 4, so 75%. Sri Shabde Lakshmi Sabde Ek Bastu Ukta Punar Ukta Praibase Nahi Punar Ukta. Although the words Sri and Lakshmi convey the same meaning and are therefore almost redundant, they are nevertheless not redundant. Sri Jukta Lakshmi Arte Artera Vibhed Punar Uktabad Abasha Shabda Lankarabhed. Describing Lakshmi as possessed of Sri opulence, offers a difference in meaning with a tinge of repetition. This is the second ornamental use of words. Here it says Sri Jukta Lakshmi. Many times in the map we would hear persons referred to as Sri Jukta and then their name. I'm not exactly sure what that meaning is, but...
I mean, yes you do.
Huh?
I said, yes, you do. Shri and Yukta. Right? Yukta is the same root as yoga. So, like, endowed with Shri.
Okay. Okay, but I mean, when they use it in the walls of the Samadhi and stuff, that refers to Shri.
It's just a title, like Shri.
Yeah. Shri Yukta, and then it has the person's name. Lakshmir Eva Arta Lankar Upama Prakash Ara Arta Lankara Ache Namav Virodabhash. The use of the words Lakshmi, Lakshmir Eva, like Lakshmi, manifests the ornament of meaning called Upama, analogy. There is also the further ornament of meaning called Virodabhash, or a contradictory indication. Gangate Kamala Janme Sabara Subodha Kamale Gangara Janma Adyanta Viroda. Everyone knows that lotus flowers grow in the water of the Ganges, but to say that the Ganges takes birth from a lotus flower seems extremely contradictory. This is the ornament of Viroda Bhasha, or a contradictory indication. And this is nice. Ihan Vishnu Parapadme Gangara Udpati Viroda Lankara Iha Maha Chamatkriti. The existence of Mother Ganges begins from the lotus feet of the Lord. Although this statement that water comes from a lotus flower is a contradiction, in connection with Lord Vishnu, it is a great wonder. Ishvara Chintya Shakti Gangara Prakash Ihate Viroda Nahi Viroda Abhash. In this birth of the Ganges by the inconceivable potency of the Lord, there is no contradiction, although it appears contradictory. Ambujam Ambuni Jatam Kvachid Apina Jatam Abujadambu Murabidi Tadviparitam Parambojan Mahanadi Jata. Everyone knows that lotus flowers grow in the water, but water never grows from a lotus. All such contradictions, however, are wonderfully possible in Krishna. The great river Ganges has grown from his lotus feet. Gangara Mahatva Sadhya Saranatahar Vishnu Paropati Anuman Alankar. The real glory of Mother Ganges is that she has grown from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Such a hypothesis is another ornament called Anuman. Stula e Panchadosha Panchalankar Shukshma Vichariye Jadi Achaye Abar. I have simply discussed the 5 gross faults in the 5 literary embellishments of this verse. But if we consider it in fine detail, we will find unlimited faults.
Everyone's
Okay.
paying attention.
Huh?
Everyone's paying attention.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Pratibha kavitva tomar devata prasade avichara kavye avasha pade dosha bade. You have achieved poetic imagination and ingenuity by the grace of your worshipable demigod. But poetry not well reviewed is certainly subject to criticism. Vichare kavitva koile hoy sunirmal Salankara, Hoile Arta, Kore Jalamal. Poetic skill used with due consideration is very pure, and with metaphors and analogies, it is dazzling. Shunya Prabhur Vyakya, Digvijayi Vishmita, Mukena, Nishare Vakya, Pratibha Stambita. After hearing the explanation of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the champion poet was struck with wonder. His cleverness stunned. He could not say anything. Kahite chahaye kechu na aishe utar, tabi vicharaye mane hoya fanfar. He wanted to say something, but no reply would come from his mouth. He then began to consider this puzzle within his mind. Paduya balak koila Morabudi Lop, Jani Saraswati, More Korijachin Cope. This mere boy has blocked my intelligence. This mere boy has blocked my intelligence. I can therefore understand that Mother Saraswati has become angry with me. Jai Vyakya Korila Se Manushara Nahishati Nimai Muke Rahe Bole Apane. Saraswati, the wonderful explanation the boy has given could not have been possible for a human being. Therefore, Mother Saraswati must have spoken personally through his mouth. Eta bhaviko heshuna nimai pandita tababhyakya shuni amina hoilan bishmita. Thinking thus, the Pandit said, "My dear Nimai Pandit, please hear me. Hearing your explanation, I am simply struck with wonder. Alankara nahi para nahi shrutabhyas kemane esaba arta korile prakash." I am surprised. You are not a literary student and do not have long experience in studying the Shastras. How have you been able to explain all these critical points? Iyashuni Mahaprabhu ati bora rangi tahara ridoya jani kohe kore bangi. Hearing this and understanding the Pandit's heart, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied in a humorous way. Shastrara vichara balo manda nahi jani Saraswati jai bolaya se bolebani. My dear sir, I do not know what is good composition and what is bad, but whatever I have spoken must be understood to have been spoken by Mother Saraswati. Oh, that was very heavy for the Pandit to hear that. He's thinking that I'm surprised you are not a literary student and you do not have long experience in studying the Shastras. How have you been able to explain all these critical points? Hearing this and understanding the poet's heart, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied in a humorous way. My dear sir, I do not know what is good composition and what is bad, that's true. But whatever I have spoken must be understood to have been spoken by Mother Saraswati. Then the champion is thinking, oh, I knew it. He's thinking that Saraswati wanted to punish him. Ita shuni digvijayi korila nisjoy sishudware devi more koila parajai. When he heard this judgment from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Pandit sorrowfully wondered why Mother Saraswati wanted to defeat him through a small boy. Ajitare nive diva kori japajan sishudware koila more eta apaman. I shall offer prayers and meditation to the goddess of learning, the champion concluded. and ask her why she has insulted me so greatly through this boy. Vastuta Saraswati Ashura Shloka Koraila Vichara Samayatara Buddhi Achadila. Saraswati had in fact induced the champion to compose his verse in an impure way. Furthermore, when it was discussed, she covered his intelligence, and thus the Lord's intelligence was triumphant. Tabi Sishyagan Sab Hashite Lagila Tasab Nishedi Prabhu Kavire Kohila. When the poetic champion was thus defeated, all the Lord's disciples sitting there began to laugh loudly, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked them not to do so and addressed the poet as follows. Tumi Bora Pandit Mahakavi Shiromani Jaramuke Bahirai Aiche Kavyavani. You are the most learned scholar and the topmost of all great poets, for otherwise how could such fine poetry come from your mouth? Tomaraka Vitvajena Ganga Jaladar Tomasama Kavi Kota Nahidekiar. Your poetic skill is like the constant flow of the waters of the Ganges. I find no one in the world who can compete with you. Bhavabhuti Jayadeva Ara Akalidas Tasavara Kavitvayache Doshara Prakash. Even in the poetic compositions of such great poets as Bhavabhuti, Jayadev, and Kalidas, there are many examples of faults. Doshaguna Vichar E Alpa Korimani Kavitva Korane Shakti Taha Sabakani. Such mistakes should be considered negligible. One should see only how such poets have displayed their poetic power. Shaishava Chapaya Kichu na Labeamar Sishyara Samanamui na Hantomar. I'm not even fit to be your disciple. Therefore, kindly do not take seriously whatever childish impudence I have shown. Ajivasa Jahakali Miliba Amar Shuniba Tomara Muke Shastra Vichar. Please go home, and tomorrow we may meet again, so that I may hear discourses in the Shastras from your mouth. Imate Nijagare Gela Duijan Kabiratre Koila Saraswati Aradan. In this way, both the poet and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went back to their homes, and at night the poet worshipped Mother Saraswati. Saraswati Swapnetare Upadesha Koila Sakat Ishwara Kori Prabhu Ke Janila. In a dream, the goddess informed him of the Lord's position, and the poetic champion could understand. The Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. Pratyashi Prabhu Pade Loila Sharan Prabhu Kripa Koila Tara Kandila Bandan. The next morning the poet came to Lord Chaitanya and surrendered unto his lotus feet. The Lord bestowed His mercy upon him and cut off all his bondage to material attachment. Bhagyavanta Digvijayi Safala Jivan Vidyabole Paila Mahaprabhu Charan. The poetic champion was certainly most fortunate. His life was successful by dint of his vast learning and erudite scholarship, and thus he attained the shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Really, he was, because then his knowledge and writing of everything could be utilized in the service of the Lord. Then he was blessed by having attained the shelter of the Lord. The shelter of the Lord gave him refuge, we could say. Adi-lila Varanashi Brindavanadas Jaikichu Vishesha Ihan Korila Prakash. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has described all these incidents elaborately. I have only presented the specific incidents he has not described. Chaitanya Gosaira-lila Amritaradar Sarvendriya Tripta Hoy Shravane Jahar. The nectarian drops of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes can satisfy the senses of everyone who hears them. Shri Rupa Raghunath Parijara As Chaitanya Charitamrita Kohe Krishna Das Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi-lila, 16th chapter, describing the pastimes of the Lord in his childhood and youth. Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Mananaman Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunan Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunan Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jaoite Vignana Shabishta Puran Echai Gosai Jar Mui Dharadas Tasabara Pada Renu Mora Panchagras Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas Janame Janame More Ambilas Echai Gosai Jabe Branche Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majayaman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyash Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyash Hare Nam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamunas Shri Nam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamunas Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shri Shri Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Joki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmala Charya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakha Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath, Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Premsigo, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi, Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go, Gopi Govardhan, Sham Guna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Shri Vishaka Devidasi Ki Jai, all the assembled devotees Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.